Check this out, ladies and gentlemen. This is November of last year, okay? In November of last year, that was the last time that the VIX was extremely oversold. Last November. In fact, it was right before the election. Right before the election, and then the election, it was starting. It was coming down, and then right before the election, I think this might be the election. Yeah, the VIX gaps down, and it comes down in here, and it gets oversold in a major way. And if you look between the election and this oversold nature, oversold meaning the VIX is low. When the VIX is low and down and being sold off like this, it means investors are not nervous. It means they are not buying out of the money calls to hedge their portfolio. They're not trading the VIX. And when they don't trade the VIX heavily, the VIX stays in that kind of 13 to 15 range. Everybody see that? Extremely oversold? No, I mean calls. When they buy out of the money calls up here, what I'm saying is it means they're not buying the out of the money calls. Because if they buy the out of the money calls, that means they're hedging. Because they think that an event like this could happen and kill their portfolios. So events like this will hurt their portfolios because the algos will kick in and sell off Apple and things like that. And if they're sitting on a bunch of Apple, they're going to lose value in their portfolio. So what do? They buy VIX before this happens. When this is coming down all in here, they're not buying it because they're not nervous. So they're not hedging. And this is when it's most likely a time when the VIX is getting wound up and ready to go. Because simultaneously what happens in this moment in time is that the SPY that's been screaming higher gets a little overbought up here. And that sets up a scenario or within the next week or so, or maybe the next day even, you start to see, and then look right here, boom, 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 a little pullback for a couple hours, and boom, look at this move, right? All the way up north of 16, and this is when we started talking about the 16 level, the 16 and a quarter level, and 17. 18 wasn't even in the cards at that point. So I just want to point out that the last time that we were oversold on the VIX 195-minute chart was November. So just look along here. Look along. Look. Tell me when you see it. Tell me when you see it. Tell me when you see it. Oh! Yesterday. So yesterday, Monday, I mean, this is today, Monday. So, Monday, Tuesday, oversold for the first time since November 2024. So that says something. And so when I look at an indication like that, to me, thank you, Slatko, to me, that means the VIX is getting ready for a move up. And we already know what all the narratives are. We've been talking about them, right? So if I look at, say, semiconductors, I can see that semiconductors are getting a little lofty, but more importantly, semiconductors are getting beat to shit. They're getting beat up. And so if they're getting beat up, that means they're weak. And if they're strong companies, but they're weak because of price action, and the VIX goes up, these are going down. It's kind of like an experienced fighter that's been punched and knocked down and then gets up. But this is an experienced dude, But at some point, he's going down. And typically when those big, experienced heavyweight fighters go down, it goes down with a thud. And so I picked what I found. We'll talk about why I picked MU and why we did SMH. We'll talk about that in a minute. I just wanted to kind of share with you some of this perspective to get a little bit of an idea. Also, not very often that this chart on SPY gets extremely overbought. Happened here in December. Happened here, you know, you'll see little moves here and here. It happened here in the end of January. And you can see kind of here and here in mid-February. And then boom, 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 and cross over, and now here. A little bit overbought. A little lofty. Look at the cycle indicator. Way up here. Way up here. What happens? Gap down. So just go back to this chart. If you look at the SPY, we drew these fib levels, took this swing high here, the swing low here. This is that correction move, right? And I talked about this a lot. What you might see at most, I said, that you'll most likely see a move up towards the 50% retracement, which is about 581. The first level is 573. If you breach it and poke through, there's a good, you know, it wants to make it there. When we were here, I was telling you, it's going to try to make a move for the 200 period moving average, which, oh, by the way, just happens to be at the 382 extension. We talked about this. And that this was going to be at maybe just a bounce, or could it get some legs and maybe get up to the 200? That's the goal. Then it gets a little overbought, gets oversold, time for reversal. That's why I put on I took my longs off. Now, had I just sat there greedily and sat on my SPY trade and sat on my Amazon trade, remember, we were long the market coming out of the weekend, yes? How many of you are long the market coming out of the weekend? Well, because we rolled Amazon, we had JP Morgan, right? We have Amazon, SPY, and JP Morgan. Weren't we long the market because of the market movements leading up? The 105 chart is a chart that I've looked at for 5 years. We used to actually have a workspace. In fact, if you look at the basic options course, my initial chart setup will show the 78 and the 195. Yeah, me too, Michael. I had mostly all longs, SPY, Amazon, JP Morgan, right? And so, but, you know, looking at the VIX, looking at the dollar starting to make a move, looking at the Trump administration kind of waffling on tariffs makes it look a little wishy-washy, makes it look a little uncertain. So just said, okay, let's take our profits. This is accomplishing what we wanted. Let's get out with a profit and flatten out into Tuesday. Turn around Tuesday. And sure enough, Tuesday kind of turned around a little bit. It came back towards the end of the day. The market maker kind of did its shenanigans, but I didn't have much on.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video from Trade With Me Now. Make sure to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to our channel so you make sure that you catch our next video right when it's released. Also, if you have a question or comment, please leave that in the comments section below. And of course, if you want to learn more about Trade With Me Now or join our community of profitable traders, go to tradewithmenow.com. There's also a link in the description below.